podcast. We're talking about WWE Crown Jewel, the first women's match ever in Saudi Arabia. We've got a new Universal Champion. Some things went as expected. Some things were a little bit of a surprise. Here we are to talk about it, myself and Mr. Raj Giri from Wrestling Inc. Raj, what did you think of Crown Jewel? What was this, the fourth Saudi Arabia show that WWE has done?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's the fourth. I actually thought it was the best one. I can't stand that red lighting that they do during the Bray Wyatt matches. But outside of that, I thought this was a pretty good show. Tyson Fury versus Braun was sloppy. And the finish was kind of weak, but I thought that was the weakest thing on the show. But other than that, I thought it was pretty good. You take the politics out of it, thought this was a pretty entertaining show.
I was just gonna make a joke there that I should not make, so I'm censoring myself. Yeah, it was. I think it's become normalized a little bit. I think if we're gonna put this in perspective, at a certain point, the outrage, it's not that it's out of people's system, but there's sort of an acceptance level, right? They know that no amount of protesting, no amount of writing to Snickers, there's nothing to save the WWE from entering into this very lucrative relationship with the Saudi government.
Well, I thought, there was some backlash to previous ones, but the one last year in October, that was the big one, or was it late October, early November? That was after the killing of the journalists. That was the one that really had the strong backlash. I felt like all the others, it was kind of similar to this. It was kind of business as usual, not much media attention.
Yeah. And I think that our expectations are a little different now. I mean, going into the first one or two, when they had the greatest Royal Rumble, the best in the world tournament, I think that we didn't know what it was going to be. There were surprises in terms of the talent that they brought out. Even last time, Goldberg versus The Undertaker. I feel like there's a little bit of a rhythm now to these. It's not as unpredictable, perhaps, as it once was. Granted, there were some very good surprises at this show. But, we're in a little bit of a pattern now with these.
Yeah. This one definitely more important than some of the others. We mentioned they did a Universal title change last year when it was vacated, but this was the first real, major title change as far as like as last year it was their hand was kind of forced. This year, Bray Wyatt beating Seth Rollins for the Universal title. That's a pretty big deal. That
is huge. Improving, as Justin LaBar said, they are pot committed to Bray Wyatt and The Fiend, so much so that your Universal Champion is a member of the SmackDown roster.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. I would think, SmackDown obviously right now is the A show on Fox. It makes SmackDown tomorrow night a lot more interesting, they could move one of them to Raw. They could, move Bray Wyatt to Raw, saying one of the world titles needs to be on Raw. They could come up with some clause at the Survivor Series. They could use it as a way to get out of Lesnar versus Wyatt at the Survivor Series for now. Because, Bray is, he's super over. He's the best character that WWE has come up with in a while. I think it's too soon for him to face Lesnar at Survivor Series. That should be a WrestleMania match, in my opinion.
Yeah. So let's dive into this. I want to talk about the high points of this show. I feel like there was a lot that was, I don't mean to say it's filler, but in the sense that it was serviceable. It filled time. It got us to where we needed to be. But I think we all knew what the tent poles were going into this. Bray versus Seth. Team Flair versus Team Hogan, if you're a nostalgia junkie, Tyson versus Braun, Kane versus Brock, and the first women's match. I know there was a Universal title match. I know Mansoor versus Cesaro. Other things happened, but I felt like there were tent poles and there was everything else. Even that tag team turmoil match. A little bit just there. These cups, they're going to come out bringing it out with them to the club next week or tomorrow night or whenever, but this doesn't have a long shelf life.
Yeah. That was actually felt like that was kind of the low point in the show. There was nothing wrong with the wrestling, but the tag titles have been such an afterthought in WWE that it's just hard to get behind it. And that match went like 40 minutes. So, it was slow.
So we opened with a 20-man battle royal, which nothing says must-watch content like a battle royal with this lineup. WWE
At least this had stakes, though. I mean, usually, the last couple have had no stakes. So,
Yes.
in that sense.
Yes, the winner getting a shot at AJ Styles' U.S. title tonight. We had WWE 24/7 champion Sunil Singh, Mojo Rawley, Eric Rowan, R-Truth, Sin Cara, the Brian Kendrick. Forgot he was still signed. Titus O'Neil, Tony Nese, Akira Tozawa, Shelton Benjamin, Apollo Crews, Buddy Murphy, Andrade, Drake Maverick, Eric Young, Luke Harper, Cedric Alexander, Heath Slater, Humberto Carrillo, and No Way Jose, who seemed surprisingly over in Saudi Arabia. I think the surprise here, I mean, they did a 24/7 title change on the ramp, but Humberto Carrillo winning this to get another match with AJ Styles tonight.
Yeah, I don't know, and we'll get into it later. It's cool to see Humberto winning it, but also they beat him for the third time this week in third straight time a singles match. He's 0-3. We see it time and time again that those losses catch up to you quick when people just see you as just an entertaining wrestler who just gets beat all the time. We've seen it with Ali, other guys. You start losing how over you are pretty quickly.
Do you think someone perhaps in the Saudi officials, they've made requests before for specific wrestlers like Yokozuna, not knowing that some aren't even with us anymore? Do you think backstage someone was saying, how come Akira Tozawa didn't do the baby oil spot?
I don't think so.
They're not big AEW fans over there?
I doubt it.
Yeah, well. Yeah. Humberto Carrillo, though, good for him. That kid's a star. But I think this is what we talked about the other night. They're giving these guys these showcase opportunities. And yes, he won this tournament, but ultimately when it comes down to it, if you're facing AJ Styles, if you're facing Seth Rollins, I mean, instead of shaking their hand, they might as well pat him on the head at the end of the match. Because it's showing that they're not quite at that level enough to pick up the win. The big win when it counts. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, again, I hate to keep saying it over and over. These losses catch up to you. I mean, there are way more examples of people losing their steam over losing all the time than the other way around.
And Luke Harper. There were Harper chants. Has that ever happened before?
Saudi Arabia, I mean, they were really into this show. I mean, they were chanting "This is awesome" like every match. But yeah, Luke Harper was over with this crowd.
This was the best crowd of all the Saudi shows.
Yeah, they were hot for it. You could tell they wanted to be there. It wasn't signs. Right. Yeah, and you could tell it wasn't a case of just the Saudi officials papering the crowd with relatives and friends. So. Yeah, this was a good crowd. I mean, they were hot for this show. They were hot the whole night, and I think that also added to the show being really easy to watch.
And I know our cultures may divide us. Our laws may be different. We may come from different upbringings, have different beliefs culturally, religiously, but panning in the crowd, it warmed my heart to see that everywhere there are indifferent-looking teenagers and 20-somethings staring at their phone during a wrestling match.
It's worldwide. It's worldwide, baby. It's not an American thing.
Yes. So really, aren't we all the same when it comes down to it?
A society of just staring down at your phones.
Absolutely.
I'm guilty of it.
Well, I mean, you have an excuse at least at a wrestling show. You got to update the site. You got to tweet something funny, maybe.
And there are times when I'll be watching a movie with my wife and I have nothing to check. I'm just so used to it that I'm like going on my phone, checking my email real quick. But yeah.
That's why we can't watch the shows with subtitles as much. Some of the foreign dramas we like, because I explain it's like I can't look at my phone if I have to read the entire time.
You have to keep rewinding.
Yeah, it's terrible. Or just to ask my wife to fill me in on what happened. So Humberto Carrillo won this. He is the new #1 contender for the U.S. title. We'll talk about that match. Then tag team turmoil. We got a preview of what was coming up tonight. The Revival, Robert Roode Ziggler, backstage promos from Heavy Machinery. I mean, they really, in fairness, they really built this up like it meant something. And I think that's maybe the key, right? They didn't want to do another title belt like the Greatest Royal Rumble belt. They want the cup instead. And I like that they're trying to make a cup feel like it matters.
Well, if it's going to feel like it matters, mention it, for more than 2 weeks later. It's forgotten about usually pretty quickly.
Yeah, they should do like the Stanley Cup, have people drinking beer out of it. What was the one hockey player got in trouble? I think he fed his dog out of the Stanley Cup. Do something with it.
Yeah, at least you have it almost be like Money in the Bank where you could trade it in for a title shot. They don't do that for tag teams. Do something with it.
Yeah. WWE title match. Cain Velasquez versus Brock Lesnar. Cain out there with Rey Mysterio. After all this build-up, after all this hype, after all this, Brock Lesnar won pretty handily with the Kimura lock on Cain.
Yeah, it was pretty short. It was like 2-3 minutes, maybe 4. At one point, Lesnar was charging at Cain. Cain, hit him with the knee. Got a hope spot, was landing some punches, but Brock was able to secure a Kimura. And yeah, Cain tapped out. And then after the match, Brock was kicking the shit out of Cain. Rey came in, started wailing Brock with a couple of chair shots. Brock picked him up like a child, threw him outside, started beating up Cain some more, and then Rey came in, started wailing away at Brock, and cleared the ring of Brock. So it looks like Brock and Rey is the direction that they're going next. They're both on SmackDown. It makes sense. I don't know who else you go with right now. I know there's two very different thoughts on this. Some thought it was just a waste. I prefer a match to be short and sweet like this as opposed to long and drawn. When you got one guy who isn't a wrestler yet.
Sure.
He's only been training. He just started this year. He did a couple matches in AAA, but those were tag matches where he did just a couple of spots.
Yeah.
So for someone with no experience, and Brock is not, working out at the Performance Center to work a match with them. So given those limitations, I had no problem with this. I actually thought it was good for what it was. The crowd was super hot. They were hot for Brock, booing the hell out of Cain. So I thought it was entertaining for how quick it was. The whole thing was about 20 minutes between the pyro and everything. It felt like a big deal. So I liked it, but I also know that part, because you can ask, why even do this match? Why have Cain versus Brock? Well, it's Saudi Arabia. They wanted a big attraction. This was the biggest thing that they could come up with. So knowing that WWE is doing this match regardless, I thought it was booked as probably as well as it should have.
But could you imagine when Ronda Rousey came in, if she would have lost like this?
Well, first of all, I don't think Cain should be beating Brock in his first match. Brock has been built up for so long. If Ronda Rousey was facing Stephanie McMahon in her first match, and if it was Cain against Drake Maverick or Shane McMahon, he should not be losing. Against Brock, it's a different story. He's the champion. But I know what you mean. Like right off the bat, you've killed Cain's unbeatable aura, and he didn't have it as much as Ronda. I felt like he wasn't as over as Ronda was. He's not the superstar that Ronda is. And who knows? We might not see Cain again for a little while. He's under a multi-year contract. He's definitely going to wrestle again. But maybe we don't see him again until the Royal Rumble. Maybe he takes out some time off to train. He's got a bad knee. He's been saying he's going to use stem cells for it and not get the surgery. But look, Brock. They could do a reverse Brock Lesnar UFC story here. I guess it's not reverse. It's the exact same thing. Where Brock came in, was dominant for a minute in his UFC fight, submitted, got caught in a submission hold and tapped, and then came back, won his next fight, and then was given a title shot and won that. They could do a storyline like that. Do I trust WWE to do that kind of storytelling? No, but they could, and we'll just have to see where they go from here. If that was it, and Cain is done with Brock, and they move on, then it was, it kind of hurt Cain, but they could definitely come back from that.
I think this was so primed for interference. Why not have Dominic wheel himself out there into the ring?
You had Rey there, but I don't know. I just don't think Cain should be beating Brock. Brock shouldn't lose to someone in their first match.
Yeah. Well, that was what it was.
And I get people that feel the opposite way.
I mean, I think it bodes poorly, though, if you have a UFC guy who legitimately has beat Brock Lesnar in a real fight before. If he can't beat Brock Lesnar, who's going to take the title off of him
But at the same time, Brock's been beating all the WWE guys. To have someone from the UFC just come in and beat him in a wrestling match, which is supposed to be their world, I think that was also bad for the talent.
This is the problem with mixing real and fake fighting.
I mean, it got WWE a ton of publicity, and at the end, really no harm, no foul, unless I can't see Kane as a top level draw in WWE. I'm sure they're going to push him that way, but he just doesn't have that charisma. It maybe something clicks and that changes, but I just don't see it right now.
They had a press conference for this fight.
Yeah, and this was way better than Undertaker versus Goldberg, right? And
time will tell. Debatable.
Yeah, but Undertaker versus Goldberg. If this had went 15 minutes or 10 minutes, I bet you people would have just really been crapping on it. So keeping it short and sweet. I thought same thing with Braun and Tyson. Tyson really tried. He worked his ass off, but you could see the sloppiness in there. And I felt like if that was shorter, it would have been better.
So World Cup Tag Team Turmoil. Say that 5 times fast. Raw Tag Team Champions, the Viking Raiders, versus SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Revival, versus the New Day, versus Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode, versus Heavy Machinery, versus Lucha House Party, versus Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins, versus the OC, versus the B Team. So this was like a gauntlet match where 2 teams at a time, every time a team was defeated, a new team came in. Ultimately, this ended up coming down to Gallows and Anderson and the Viking Raiders going head-to-head at the very end. And I gotta admit, I was surprised that Gallows and Anderson picked up a win. Do you think this is part of the plan to give them something, throw them a bone, and keep them happy, given what's... did they re-sign their deal?
Yeah, they're re-signed. They're re-signed long-term. So
this perhaps is part of that. Hey, we're not going to give you titles yet, but here's a cup.
They're not doing anything to appease any talent right now. That they have, especially a tag team. But let me run through this real quick. So Ziggler and Roode, they beat the Lucha House Party first. Out came, who was next? Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins were out next. They beat them quickly. So Roode and Ziggler then faced Heavy Machinery. Heavy Machinery got the win, and they were eliminated. Out came the New Day, Big E, and Kofi Kingston. And then the Kofi Kingston and Big E got the win. Revival out next. New Day, again, get the win. After the match, Big E's outside the ring. Kofi just gets destroyed by the Revival. And then Gallows and Anderson are in. Gallows and Anderson end up defeating Kofi and hit their big slam. New Day's eliminated. And out next were the Viking Raiders, who I forgot that they were in this match. I kept getting confused with that. AOP were not in this match, but the Viking Raiders were. Viking Raiders get beat by the OC for the pin. Now, Kofi Kingston, let me ask you this. If you watch Kofi Kingston, if you watch this show and you hadn't watched wrestling in a year, would you think that Kofi Kingston spent 6 months as champion and had this big Cinderella story? Because he is really just back to where he was last year.
No, it's like he's like placeholder for Xavier Woods, it seems like. Like, they're just treating it as interchangeable with New Day. It's like there's Big E and then the other guys.
It's such a waste of a great story that they told earlier this year. They never changed. They needed to get Kofi into more of a single star for him to be taken more seriously as a single star, but it's just such a waste to just put him way back to where he was after that full year. I hope this is leading to New Day breakup, either with Big E turning or Kofi turning. It almost kind of seemed like Kofi.
It never is. Come on.
I know.
You analyze this like the Zapruder film, and it's like, did you see that Kofi was looking down in this one part where Big E was looking up, and perhaps this shows a schism, some turmoil?
Yeah.
It's just never happened. Big E's never getting a solo push. They're not turning him heel. They're not breaking him up.
I hope you're wrong, but you're probably right.
Now I say this in a smash cut to tomorrow night on SmackDown. Oh my God, the New Day broke up. Can you believe it?
All right. Yeah.
So there. For you, I'm purposefully laying the opposite groundwork. So yeah, the Gallows and Anderson are the best in the world tag team.
Yeah.
Oh man, which is weird because you think that maybe one of the teams with belts might be the best in the world, but no. Gallows and Anderson.
Plus, you've had the Viking Raiders be so dominant. We've talked about it so many times on this podcast. Once you beat somebody for the first time, it takes that, that you can't put that genie back in the bottle. It takes that specialness of seeing them lose, So I wouldn't have even had the Viking Raiders in this match, but them getting beat by the OC, it just gets, kind of kills some of their steam. Oh yeah, someone's reminding me the B team were somewhere in there. I forget who they were eliminated by.
Yeah. Cesaro versus Mansoor. Mansoor picking up a win. This guy, I mean, talk about playing to the local crowd. It's like when the Iconics get the big match when they go to Australia. Mansoor here getting a win over Cesaro, cutting that promo after. This guy, man, if they start NXT Saudi Arabia, this is their top guy.
Yeah, this guy, I mean, he's got charisma. He's got a ton of fire. He's got a good look. He looks like Seth Rollins, right? Doesn't he?
Yeah. Kind of.
Yeah. He's the full package. He's still green, but you wouldn't be able to tell it with this match because Cesaro is just so damn good. And so you got to give Cesaro his props. I think he's the most underrated guy in WWE. But this match, in a lot of ways, I thought this was the best wrestling match as far as in-ring action on the card. Team Flair versus Team Hogan was close. It's between the two, but this was really good. If you guys hadn't seen it, go back and watch this. This match was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then, Mansoor cutting a great hometown promo. He was emotional with his first, singles win. It was really good stuff. And, in Saudi Arabia is the one place where WWE won't have the hometown guy lose as opposed to everywhere else. So I thought they did everything right with this match. Hey,
I'm sure if San Jose was footing the bill for, Raw and San Jose, Bailey would be winning all of them.
I bet you they wouldn't. Unless it was a big money deal and they paid attention.
Yeah, perhaps. So after that, we got, everyone's been waiting for it, Tyson Fury versus Braun Strowman. So Tyson, I've seen photos and video clips. He does this cultural appropriation thing everywhere that he fights. It's not like he just said, today I'm going to come out in the local garb.
Yeah, I feel like usually is it a babyface thing? Like I know I've never seen a Tyson Fury boxing match. I've seen Floyd Mayweather when he would do it, like when he fought Oscar De La Hoya. He came out with the sombrero, and he did it like mocking. Because I think the fight was on Cinco de Mayo as well, but he did it almost like a mocking, the crowd and De La Hoya. I never knew what it was with Fury, if he was pandering or if he was mocking.
That's a good point. Is it tribute or is it yeah?
And here definitely it was tribute. I mean, he was playing up to that. Yeah. You're not gonna be mocking the Saudi. But yeah, I mean, Tyson Fury, that guy, he's got just so much charisma that after his boxing career is done, I totally could see him being a big time pro wrestler. He only had a month to get this match together. Again, they went a little long, so you could see a lot of the cracks. When you have only a month of training, there's only so much you can do. But Tyson showed a ton of fire. I thought the finish where they were in the ring and he punched Braun in the face. Braun went to the outside and was counted out. I thought that sucked. I don't think you should be pinning Braun either, but you could have done something where. Braun, where he does that tackle on the outside of the ring, where Braun is running to tackle Tyson, and then as he's hitting, Tyson connects with the big right hand. They both go down, and Tyson rolls in right before the 10 count. Makes it more dramatic, a cooler finish as opposed to him punching him out and just standing in the ring while Braun is counted out. But it wasn't terrible. I thought it was the weakest thing. Probably the weakest thing on the show in ring action wise, but Tyson has got a superstar potential.
Yeah, I thought he looked really good in this. Regardless of what you thought the match itself, I thought that he came across very well. And I don't know. I mean, in terms of who has more of a future, it's funny that they signed Kane But I think Tyson could absolutely keep his thing going in the WWE. I think it would work.
Yeah, exactly. Once he's got a couple of big name boxing fights, in the pipeline, but once that's over, I could definitely see that. He's entertaining. He's, again, ton of charisma. If you let him go and don't script him and just let him, he has said some controversial things.
He does have some interesting views about other cultures, and we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, but he's also had some issues, and he said those comments were made. Whatever. But yeah, I think if he's mentally fit, and don't give him a script, and he could be.
Don't give him a script. I mean, don't put him on a live mic either necessarily. But talking points. Give him some bullet points, some stuff to hit.
Yeah.
I liked the mix of fighting styles. I've always been a fan of that. It reminds me going back to Thunder Lips versus Rocky. Mm-hmm. Kind of a little Street Fighter-esque. I think having a boxer and a wrestler. He won this by countout against Braun Strowman, but I was sports entertained by this match.
Yeah, exactly. From a wrestling point of view, it wasn't great. From a wrestling point of view, I thought it sucked, but I was not bored. I was not like, God, when is this? God, this is just killing the show. Like the Bray Wyatt, Seth Rollins Hell in the Cell match last month or earlier this month. It was fine.
Yeah. So backstage,
and Tyson Fury, if you haven't seen it, watch his intro with all the pyro and anything. It was pretty cool.
So Samir Singh backstage won the 24/7 title off R-Truth. So now both Singh brothers have been 24/7 champions.
I think I don't know. They need to drop this thing.
Which is the 24/7 title?
Yeah, even in the ratings, it's been one of the low points of the show. So it's run its course.
Sorry, I was just looking at a comment.
Yeah, let's throw some of these up since I think we're going to have some extras. Well, appropriate ones.
Yeah. What's with Robbie Williams? Someone saying, sorry, caught my attention. No, look, I thought this was very entertaining, very good. The 24/7 title, though, man, like that's just. You know what we need? We need some new people in it. It's a shame that it was with the women for a hot minute. But I feel like that would breathe life into it, especially right now, given how they're not using the majority of the women's roster. Why not for a week or two let them have those segments? It'll feel all the more fresh when it comes back to them.
They did it. I mean, they did it with Carmella. It wasn't like it was any better.
It was like a day.
No, it was like a couple weeks, right? Or at least it was at least a week.
You sure? Sure about that?
I almost think it was 2.
I doubt that.
But regardless, it just brings the women down. Like as soon as you saw Asuka running around for the 24/7 title, it made her seem like less of a star.
I'm not saying Asuka should be in the conga line, but I'm just saying we've got other women.
Yeah, I think it hurts being in the conga line more than getting an appearance on TV.
Speaking of women that should be in that chase, did Alicia Fox get released? She's been posting some stuff on social media.
Well. She was moved to the alumni section. WWE never confirmed that she was released. But that's what it looks like, yeah.
They moved to the Fox network, and we never get an Alicia Fox network joke. I feel robbed.
She was on that Raw reunion show, and she was listed as a legend on that as well, and not as a current talent. Yeah.
Love me some Alicia Fox. WWE United States title match, Humberto Carrillo versus AJ Styles. And in his third high-profile match in just over 2 weeks here, Humberto Carrillo loses to AJ Styles.
Yeah, he hasn't won a singles match yet, and man,
because I hear in Matt's head is like, well, some would argue that you're in a match with these guys, so you're on the level. But dude, if you don't win,
right? And exactly. At some point, if you don't win, people lose faith in you, and we've seen this time and time again with guys who put on great matches but keep losing. Fans lose faith. Hopefully, they start giving Humberto Carrillo some wins over Gallows and Anderson, and a few other people. Don't have him lose for a while. But knowing WWE, they'll probably have him lose again on Monday. But Carrillo is a hell of a talent in the ring. I mean, this was another good match. AJ is just great in this role. I'd like to see AJ back in that world title picture. He comes across as a star, which not many people on Raw right now do. So I think AJ would be good in that role. But yeah, Carrillo, we'll see. I mean, it's clear that Heyman has high hopes for him, but Heyman really likes Cedric Alexander. Ultimately, it comes down to Vince, and if Vince doesn't see anything in you, we see what happened to Cedric. Most recently. It happens to tons of people, Cedric being a recent example.
Cedric is very, very good, but Humberto, like, that kid has just got so much charisma, so much charm. Even in the way that in the ring, his facial expressions, the moves he does, his moveset's a little different than everyone else's. I think this is an effect. This is what happens when you've got guys like Brock hoarding the top spots, is you have to have talent like AJ and Nakamura on this lower level. Guys that could be at the top holding the IC and United States titles. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's a star-making opportunity there.
I think they'd be there anyway. It's up to Vince ultimately, and I mean, if he saw Nakamura in that position, because Brock wasn't on SmackDown forever, so, and Nakamura was there for years, and they didn't move him up to that spot. I mean, to put him, wrestling for the world title, but
yeah, he kicked AJ in the nuts, star-making turn,
right, and lost every time, but.
It's weird, man. But yeah, Humberto needs some cred because AJ Styles won and retained here. After that, he stood tall with the title. Gallows and Anderson had their big World Cup trophy in the ring. The OC all posed together, and I'm sure a photo of that will go in all of their scrapbooks when they get back to the States.
Yeah.
Think the OC big scrapbookers?
You never know. There are a lot of guys that I would not see as like video game guys that are, so who knows?
Scrapbooking's for real, man. You ever stay at a hotel when there's like a scrapbooking convention or seminar? Like, people go ape shit for scrapbooking.
I do not know.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. So let's talk about what I think was the high point of the show, and I think many will agree with me. Lacey Evans versus Natalya, the first women's wrestling match in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Both women came out. Now, they did modify their outfits, wearing basically black bodysuits, each with a T-shirt over it.
Yeah, it was like sprockets. It was like sprockets, but with T-shirts on top.
That's more relevant. I was thinking of the Famous People players.
Yeah.
In the 70s. Right. They did all the dark stuff where they all dressed in black and they moved around big props. But no, look. So you had to get past that. You had to get past that. This wasn't even like in what was it, in Dubai where the previous women's match happened, or was it Abu Dhabi?
Abu Dhabi. Sasha and Alexa.
When they had on those like the Mylar kids Halloween costumes that were kind of like their gear, but they were full body suits. So I think you had to get over that it looked a little visually different. But I gotta say, look, forget all the politics of this, forget how you feel about it. The WWE set this moment up perfectly. Both showing the crowd reaction, the women in the crowd, the young girls in the crowd, the way that people respond to this, the fans chanting, "This is awesome." I don't think this could have gone any better in terms of how the presentation was. Say what you will about the match, had a very, I mean, there was no heat during the match at all. They were shaking hands. They shook hands at the start of the match and again within the match.
Heat as opposed, as you mean, like they weren't heated, but the crowd was into it, yes.
They weren't telling a story necessarily. It was a pure exhibition. But just in terms of emotion, and even afterwards, the moment they had together, where you could see them both crying in the ring, embracing each other, it was good. I was a little verklempt while watching this. Yeah,
it's taken a year and a half to get to this point. It's conflicting because on the one point, you're saying a lot of people feel like WWE shouldn't even be doing business with Saudi Arabia. Given their politics, given that people are held back, are not allowed on these shows because of their race, like Sami Zayn, who's Muslim but a different kind. Women aren't allowed up until this point, but God, I hate saying it. It is progress, in the sense that they have managed to get women's match, but. Ultimately, it's WWE laughing all the way to the bank, right? This is a pure business move, but at least it's gotten done, and they can have women's matches now that they've had one. I'm sure at the next one they'll have more, and so it is progress. I'm not going to be, I know WWE wants to give themselves a huge pat on the back, but they're making boatload of money. It's not like they're over there to bring change. That's not why they're over there. But it is a good step.
I think that's where you look at the line between art and commerce and the ability to affect change. That yes, it's a business. I mean, but the same way, Raj, think about growing up. Everything we saw that broke new ground, whether it was interracial relationships, whether it was mainstreaming or the concept of homosexuality or alternative lifestyles in general, media did that and had that power. Society has changed so much in the time that you and I have been alive, largely through the power of TV and film in bringing these concepts to people before they were perhaps a little closed off to them. This all happened. This wasn't PBS that was doing this. This was big Hollywood studios that at the end of the day made money, got prestige, accepted the accolades, but this is their ability to affect change on the social level.
Right, and this is what we said on the last episode. It's not the people. It's, when we're talking about being behind the times and things like that, it's the government. Because you see, the government doesn't want the women's matches, but the fans are chanting, this is awesome. They were into it. They respected it, and they really liked it. I mean, they popped huge when they showed the graphic for the match earlier in the night. So, the government has a long way to go. I mean, we're a year out from when... They haven't admitted to it, but it's pretty well known that they executed a journalist. That was just last year. So, I agree with you. At some point, that change has to happen. WWE is there as they are, changing slowly, but there's a long way to go. And that, I doubt WWE. Yeah, I won't say I doubt. I know WWE wouldn't be there if it weren't for the big paycheck.
Yeah, they're not doing this to spread equality in professional wrestling. But, okay, take off the cynical hat. You're a father of daughters.
Yep.
You see this, you look out in the crowd. You see these people from a different culture, these children, these young women, these young girls looking moved by this moment to see women represented in this arena. And I think that, for me, that cuts through all my cynicism on this. And good for Natalya, good for Lacey. This was a well-deserved moment, and I think this is going to be what we're talking about. People are going to forget about everything else. Tyson Fury, this will be like the fridge wrestling over time. But this women's moment will live on in history of professional wrestling.
Yeah, it's a big moment. I mean, it will be talked about. Yeah. But I mean, Sasha and Alexa, they still bring up that, oh my God, Stephanie with the crowd was chanting, "This is hope," and all that. They didn't chant it during this match, but it is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I felt great for Natalya. You could tell both her and Lacey after the match how much it meant to them. Them hugging, the pyro going off. To your point, it definitely was, it's a moment.
Yeah. I mean, okay, now let's go back to being cynical, jaded, and talking about all this. So Natalya won that match. Good for her. This could be great. And I don't know if you ever read this. I don't know if you cover this on Wrestling Inc. I really like the columns that Natalya writes for her local paper. It's like monthly or every couple of weeks she writes them. I'm actually really looking forward to reading, essentially her essay on this experience.
Oh, I agree. She's she's great at it. I mean, she's a smart, very intelligent wrestler who has just been around the business her whole life, and she just absolutely knows what she's talking about. And she'll toe the company line, but you don't get the feeling like she's just spreading WWE propaganda. She's giving her real opinion on things. Yeah,
absolutely. So, Team Flair versus Team Hogan. Oh my God. And I was gonna say, I can't believe they brought out Lana with. Jesus, Raj, talk about cynical. Even if they did, you know what? It was a good moment. Let's appreciate the moment. And now let's rip on the fact that they brought Lana over there and brought her out with Bobby Lashley. And in 2015, the Saudi Arabia stoned somebody and literally gave lashes to someone for adultery.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I mean, Lana was there. I just kind of thought she was just there with Rusev, because clearly these Rusev, Lana Lashley angles are edited off the TV show there. I would think. I don't know, because the fans popped when it was Lashley and Rusev in the ring. Maybe that's where all those YouTube views are coming from.
I mean, geez, like, would you feel comfortable with that if you were in some angle like theirs where you're like, hey, this is really a highly punishable offense in this country? I'd be like, maybe I don't need to go to that country.
Right?
Maybe I could sit this one out.
Yeah, it's like, can you plug someone else into this match? But yeah, Lana came up. She was just on the ramp and went back to the back. She didn't go to ringside. But yeah, she came out with Lashley.
Oh, let's talk about this. Somebody did say there were some crappy fans. I didn't see this because I was having a moment discussing this with my wife. What happened? Did someone throw a bottle of water?
Yeah, someone threw a bottle of water when Natalya was coming out. Idiot fans everywhere, but yeah, I hope they took care of that fan. I mean, not take care of, not
just going off the rails.
Yeah, but I hope he got kicked out. I'll just put it that way. Maybe got a little kick in the ass on the way out.
Lashley lashes. It all works. Anyhow, off the soapbox there. So, Bobby out with Lana, Shinsuke Nakamura, Drew McIntyre, Baron Corbin, Randy Orton coming out for Team Flair. Then Hogan and Jimmy Hart out with Rusev, Ricochet, Shorty G, Ali, and Roman Reigns. Team Hogan picking up the win here. I think we all predicted that.
Someone's mentioning, I guess someone threw a water bottle at Flair too. So I hope that fan got kicked out and got a kick in the ass as well.
In fairness, at his age, he always looks dehydrated.
And plus, Flair has had much worse things thrown at him than water bottles. But still, there's no accepting that today. Yeah, I thought this match was awesome. You have a ton of great talent in this match. Roman's always really good. Orton looked awesome. Nakamura. Ricochet is dressed as... What superhero was he dressed as?
I thought Captain Marvel, but apparently...
No. Guys in the chat, let us know what Ricochet was dressed up as. I hope this is a Halloween thing, and he's not going to be dressed up like a superhero every week.
On pay-per-views.
Yeah, so hopefully it's just a pay-per-view thing. I don't know. With all the Kenny Omega, these guys dressing up as superheroes.
Starting to sound like Jim Cornette, Raj.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of young people watch play video games and know these characters, but at some point, yeah, you youngsters with your
like the punk and the metal bands.
With your hip hopping and doo wopping and. I don't know. I listen to hip hop, but I just think you look like a complete dork when you're an adult dressed up like a superhero when it's not Halloween. In this case, it is Halloween, so hopefully that might be it. But same thing as last night. But that's just my opinion on that. I made the point. Like if a UFC fighter was going to the cage dressed up like Batman, I think he looked like a dork. I know some guys have done it at the weigh-ins. Tom Lawler is dressed like Dan Severn, but that was more funny. Not you're dressing up like I don't know. I think it's just different. Yeah, dressing up like Mighty Mouse.
All Might from My Hero Academia. But yes, someone's pointing out he looks like Underdog in that outfit. So Team Hogan won this match.
Yeah, Team Hogan and it was Orton that
Reigns and Orton
that took the pin. So all the guys kind of hit their finisher at the end. Ali had nailed Randy Orton hit Ali with the RKO. Everyone's hitting everybody. Finally, Reigns was left alone in the ring with Orton, speared Orton to get the win. Gotta wonder if, I don't know. Sometimes with WWE, they are just booking just for the hell of it, no real rhyme or reason. Sometimes there's a little message. Orton getting beat, when he's the top guy on one of the biggest names on Raw. I don't know if it's just a case of having the team captain beat the team captain, or if Orton's recent comments about AEW and his Instagram posts might have been a catalyst in Orton taking the L.
But Randy Orton, though, he's a guy that I don't think wins and losses matter on at this point.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
He is always a credible challenger for any top opportunity.
Yeah, but WWE, they're still gonna they're still going to book that way.
Then
If they're not happy with you, they'll beat you.
I mean, do you think Randy's really going anywhere? I mean, given his family connection to the company, I think he's just. I think Randy Orton enjoys trolling.
I mean, if he got a big money offer, who knows? I didn't a year ago. I wouldn't have thought Dean Ambrose would be going. He was in a cush spot. So, I mean, you never know. I think he's using this. His contract's up next year. I think he's using it as a contract negotiation tool. But I think if he got a great offer, he doesn't have to work a hard schedule at all. I mean, he's got a pretty easy schedule at WWE comparatively. But
sure,
I could see it being tempting for him.
Well, so you hear all this stuff, rumors going around. Oh, the NXT talent, so unhappy, people wanting the release. Like AEW's only got so much money. They already are doing weekly TV plus dark on YouTube. Like AEW, I think might go for a Randy Orton, but does AEW really have the budget or bandwidth to take on more than a handful of additional talents at this point?
Yeah. No, I mean, no, they don't. Sorry. It's tough doing a podcast at this time during the day when there's just tons of stuff going on. But no, for sure. All these talents, there's limited rooms, and AEW, they don't want to look like they're WWE's B team. Like that's where talent that that didn't succeed in WWE can go and get a good spot.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Stardust and Y2J are headlining the next pay-per-view.
But Y2J, Jericho was a big star, and I don't think people see Cody as Stardust now. He's broken away from that. It's one thing when it's him as opposed to a Mike Kanellis or someone like that.
Sure.
And this is no disrespect to Mike Kanellis. He was doing much better in Impact, but he's been buried so bad that it would look bad in AEW for him to come and be beating guys.
If Mike Kanellis had not gone to WWE, I could absolutely see him having ended up in AEW in a prime spot. But now after WWE, he needs some career rehab.
Yeah, absolutely.
The main event tonight, Falls Count Anywhere match that would not be stopped for any reason whatsoever. They promise, they swear, they pinky swear. The WWE Universal title match between The Fiend Bray Wyatt versus a defending Seth Rollins. And first off, best decision to have Bray come out to the ring with the severed head?
I didn't think about that, but I think it would have been it would have stood out more if he didn't.
Really?
Then, yeah, I think people would have been like, oh, I wonder if he wasn't allowed to, or, I wonder if the Saudi government wouldn't allow him to.
So, actually, that should have been, we asked permission. Surprisingly, they were cool with it.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. Anyhow, he was full fiending tonight. Some cool camera shots in this. I mean, they really tried again to tell the story similar to Hell in a Cell of Seth just doing everything, throwing everything at him to put him down and keep him down. I thought that last moment before he got the pin, when he stood up, they had the under angle, the red light. He was standing above the road cases. I thought that was a very iconic shot. Very cool. I'm almost surprised they did the title change here because the crowd response was okay, but could you imagine if this were the ending to Hell in a Cell? That place would have erupted.
Yeah, I mean, it would have definitely gotten a better response than what they got. First off, they wrestled under that red light, and it's just hard to watch. They need to drop that immediately. I think this match would have been a lot better on TV if they didn't have that. I don't like Seth hitting 1,000 curb stomps and Bray just keeps getting up. It's one thing if Bray was a brand new character, but we know who he is. We know he can be beaten, and all of a sudden, he's getting hit by a car and just getting up. It's too hokey for me. That lighting was just god awful. But that being said, they made it look like Rollins was on his way to a victory. It was like Hell in a Cell. Fans started booing when he kept hitting the curb stomp over and over. I thought Rollins was going to go over here. And then he pushed him off the side of stage. Bray fell into this, series of carts. Yeah, what do you call them?
Road cases?
Yeah, exactly. And fireworks started going off. Seth went down, was going to go after him. Bray all of a sudden popped up. Fans went nuts. Bray locked in the mandible claw, hit the Sister Abigail on the floor, and got the victory. So fans went crazy for it. Again, I thought it was I think that's the right move right now. Seth Rollins had gotten very stale as Universal Champion. Fans have turned on him already. This feud with Bray Wyatt has turned him very unpopular. And I think it's, taking the title off of him will help Seth get some of his edge back, hopefully. And Bray, it just freshens things up. WWE really needs that right now. Everything feels kind of stale. And with the split brands, it feels like there's less star power on Raw, especially, than ever. Of course, now you got both titles on SmackDown. We'll see what they do with that. But it's a good change, I think.
I mean, I have no freaking clue what happens from here. Bray Wyatt, a SmackDown talent, appearing on the first segment tomorrow night on Miz TV, won the Universal Championship. So who in the heck knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of when wrestling is at its best, right? When you got a little chaos, when you got some unpredictability, it's you break out of the format a little bit. And WWE has been very much in their lane, staying in their lane, not doing anything out of the box. The draft, we've said it before, the draft this year was the dullest draft I think I've ever seen. With Stephanie just reading the names. It was
the exact order they were listed on the website.
Exactly. It was about as exciting as getting a text. I don't know. Or if maybe even less. Right. Right. It was, yeah. So WWE, they need to really shake things up. And I don't mean, you look at how WWE was in '95 when they were getting destroyed, losing popularity. They weren't getting destroyed in the ratings yet by Nitro, but they were getting hammered business wise. And then you look at WWF in 1998, 99, how different the shows looked. Right now, Raw and SmackDown have looked the same for a while, and it keeps getting tamer and tamer. They need a jolt, and this is one way to help it.
Well, so that was Crown Jewel. I think there are some highlights. I recommend if you skip the pay-per-view, watch some clips online, at least of Tyson versus Braun. Watch the women's match, at least watch the build-up and the conclusion of the women's match. And the high points of The Fiend versus Seth were pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, they worked their asses off. I feel bad for Seth that this program has just sucked for him. He's doing what he's told to. He's reading his lines, and they've just sucked.
Yeah, so everyone's speculating. Remember on Backstage, they said that when Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss went to SmackDown, Raw was going to get a future draft trade consideration out of this.
They said consideration, yeah.
But again, WWE, much like me, doesn't always use the correct wording. Mm-hmm. Or say it exactly. You get kind of the spirit of what they're saying, even if it's not down the letter. Like Vince is very particular sometimes about it. I could absolutely see this being Bray going back to Raw. Although still the idea of Bray and The Fiend, like in a draft, traded, reporting to management. Could you imagine like Freddy, like I'm dealing with Freddy Krueger's agent. Like it's that silly. It's like this is a mystical character.
To me, this seems like something that, because they haven't really mentioned it since that week, right? It's been kind of forgotten.
Like a week and a half, 2 weeks.
It's been a few weeks since then, but you would think if they're really going to do something that they, make sure to keep mentioning it. Man, that would be unfair, getting Bray for Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. No offense to either of those guys. I mean, look, you're not going to have two world champions on SmackDown for long. I mean, I could see them going with it to Survivor Series, or who knows, maybe they do something to end it this Friday. Yeah.
So what else is going on in the world of wrestling? Let's talk about these AEW versus NXT ratings from Wednesday night.
Okay, so both games were against the World Series, which the overnights were 21 million, and that's actually going to go up because that didn't include a lot of the West Coast viewing. So a huge competition. Both shows were down big time. NXT was down 17%. AEW was down a lot more, 21%. AEW doing 759,000 viewers. NXT doing 580,000 viewers. So, again, really poor numbers for both for where they've been. But it's kind of like it's not like a warning sign or anything. We'll see where it is next week. Now, next week, if they don't recover, then it's starting to become one. But Raw doing one of their all-time lows, AEW doing their all-time low this week, NXT their all-time low, but against insane competition for NXT and AEW. Now, in the 18-49 demo, NXT did .18, AEW did .33, a .33 rating. So almost doubling it. So it wasn't quite as big as previous weeks. Previous weeks, AEW has been beating NXT by like over 100% in that demo. But again, AEW beating NXT every week since they've started by handily. And we'll see next week. Hopefully, the thing is, I thought AEW did more storyline wise to try to get you to tune in next week. But there's not the big angles right now, I feel like, on either show that are getting you hooked to where if you stop watching for a while, will you come back? I think that's where SmackDown's hurting. There's nothing that you're like, if you're a new fan, you're tuning in for the first time and you watch it and you're like, is there a storyline that's going to make me come back next week? Or is it just business as usual?
I feel like everyone's forgotten that they're putting on a TV show at the end of the day.
Yeah. Like having cliffhangers. You're a Breaking Bad fan. You watched El Camino, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so we watched that, and after that, which I thought was very good. I mean, if you're expecting something groundbreaking, it wasn't, but it was like a very good episode of Breaking Bad. But after that, me and my wife went back to start watching Breaking Bad again. Every episode's ending on some sort of cliffhanger that gets you tuning into next week.
Yeah.
Raw used to do that back in the day. And WCW, Nitro at their peak, they would do that successfully, where it just left you wanting more.
If I was WWE, I've been on a tear. We watched all of Succession on HBO. Have you watched that yet?
I have not.
So it's about an aging media icon. It's based on Rupert Murdoch, but it's based on him and his adult kids and who's going to succeed him in the company. And there's all this infighting and turmoil, and it's the lives of the mega rich. If I was the WWE, I would be using this. You don't even need to have Vince on screen with this. I think you can involve some wrestlers in it. You could do some great stuff. But it's showing how you can do very simple drama between people and conflict, and then you throw in the fact that you get to go on and put on these awesome matches. I don't know. I think they need to rethink what kind of show they want to be. And because they've got 3 hours, guess what? They could be 5 different shows over the course of 3 hours. They could have 10 different storylines all running that 8 different genres and just give us the amazing. I mean, wrestling is some of the best it's ever been. The performers are some of the best they've ever been. We're not in a big character era where the characters are able to carry it. So let's get 10 concurrent storylines going and give people something to sink their teeth into. Give me something to think about, in terms of what's going to happen next, because just who's going to go out there and trade wins and losses this week, that is not compelling.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The characters, that's where I do feel like AEW is doing more as far as trying to get characters, they're doing a little bit more than WWE, but outside of Chris Jericho, no one's really coming across larger than life. Maybe Cody Rhodes to an extent. It's coming across as a real star. And, NWA Power, I really like their promos and everything, but they don't have the storylines that will keep you coming back every week. And now it's a niche thing. It's a cult thing. But you look at their YouTube numbers from their first episode and granted, YouTube numbers are fluid. They're not the most reliable because you'll watch one video and then all of a sudden the next one will start up. But when the first episode did close to 500,000 viewers by the end of the first week, the second is what they're at, they did 300,000. The third is at 200,000. This fourth one right now is at 140. That'll go up some, but you're seeing that drop, and I think it's the lack of a strong storyline. Yeah, for week to week.
I mean, and with AEW, what they're getting, they're taking, I feel like, baby steps because it's such a small part of the show, but at least the storylines that they're doing are very compelling and interesting. It's just that we've still got a lot of new talent that most people don't know who these guys and women are yet at this point. So it's interesting challenges. NXT, man, I feel like and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it is back to feeling like NXT on the network, which was still very, very good. But I feel like, man, you got 2 hours. Like, what are they missing to just bring it all together?
Yeah, I know I get criticized for kind of saying the same thing every week, but Eric Bischoff, there's an article on WrestlingInc.com if you check it out right now, and he said it best, and this is a sentiment I agree with 100%. He said, the audience to me makes the AEW show so much better than the NXT show. Not that there's anything wrong with the NXT show. The action is great. The characters are great. But when you put a live event inside of a small confined studio, kind of like TNA, I don't care how great the action is in the ring. It just doesn't have that big event feel to it. And I think that week in and week out, that's what makes AEW easier to watch, more interesting than NXT.
Yeah, and I think this is part of the reflection of WWE's stock price. So if you put $1 into WWE stock in April, now you've got a little over 50 cents.
Yeah, it's dropped a ton. Today it's down 16%. The Q3 earnings came out, and I mean, WWE missed expectations on all the major areas.
Kind of a theme for WWE, missing expectations. I feel like it's the thing the company is best at.
Well, yeah. I mean, the stock price is still up from where it was a year ago, and from where it's been, but it is down a lot today, and the earnings were very disappointing. Yeah, let me pull that up here real quick. 1 second. Go ahead and talk about something real quick while I bring this up.
So Halloween is tonight. There's a new Terminator movie coming out. I'm going to see it tonight, and I'm a little disappointed. Schwarzenegger Arnold hasn't appeared on WWE programming to promote this.
Yeah, well, there you go. All right, I got it. So net income fell to 5.8 million from 33.6 million due to a reduction in tax benefits. Revenues only declined 1.1%, but it missed expectations. Media revenue rose from 146.1 million, but it missed expectations. What they expected more, 146.8, so just a little bit. Now the big drops again for another quarter. Live event revenue dropping 13%. All the numbers are on Wrestling Inc., so you can see if you want the exact numbers. Consumer products, merchandise basically, fell another 13%. Live event revenue was a money loser again this quarter. Ratings fell from this point last year. All these numbers are compared to the same quarter last year. WWE was touting that the ratings fell, but didn't fall quite as much as the top 25 shows on the cable networks. Those fell 7%. Raw was down 6%, but Raw was also boosted a little bit with the Raw reunion special. SmackDown, I believe, was down 4%. Anyway, bad news on the WWE business front, and it's going to change next year as far as the media rights. With the Raw and SmackDown, those deals have kicked in this quarter. They're going to be making a ton of money off on those ends, but if they keep dropping on all the other, they're going to keep missing expectations, and so that stock will probably keep dropping more, even though they're making record revenue.
Yes. Do you think Vince has a clause in these media rights contracts that say no takebacks? Deal is final.
Well, USA, they have nothing to worry about. They're beating USA ratings were down 15% from the same point last year, so they need WWE. So they're happy with. They want to keep it. Fox is a whole different animal. I mean, the ratings are way down from what they were last week's. Not last week's. Not. I'm not going to count the FX one. The week before was down considerably ratings wise from the year before that. So.
It's pointed out in the chat too, WWE merch prices have gone up also in the last year or two. And I think that it further shows that there's a sense of greed in terms of a lot of what they're doing, right? I mean, I think they're thinking about money first, creative and fan satisfaction, maybe fifth or sixth. I mean, after maybe what kind of day is Vince having? It's just, I don't know. I just don't feel like the priority is on fan service. or satisfaction.
It's definitely not on the storylines and the on-screen. You know, it's creating content, but not effective content.
Yeah,
It's just throwing matches out there, just throwing shit out there to get more hours of streaming and you know, tout those numbers. But as far as creating stars, the Fiend is the only one that's been created in a while, and that's mostly Bray Wyatt. That's mostly Bray Wyatt.
Well, tomorrow night we're gonna be back to talk about SmackDown. Me, Matt Morgan, Michael Wiseman. Raj will be back on Monday. Talk about Monday Night Raw.
Someone is saying that FS1, no one can find it, and it was barely promoted. If you care about watching a show, it's not that hard to go on your phone and type, what channel is FS1 on.
I think it shows how much people care, though.
Exactly, it's more people not caring enough to find it. So, I don't count last week's SmackDown rating, but it was way lower than most people expected. I mean, WWE thought they were going to do around 2 million. I thought it was going to be in the 1.6 to 1.8 million, doing 888,000. Look, I'm sure this week's WWE on Fox number is going to be the lowest yet. I do think they'll rebound a little bit next week. I think all the shows will be up a little. I don't know about Raw, but at least AEW, NXT, and SmackDown should be up next week.
We shall see. Until then, stay tuned to Wrestling Inc. for all the latest wrestling news. Anything else before we take this home, Rush?
Yeah, they're teasing on Backstage tomorrow. They're teasing a big name, a huge name. So we'll see what that is. I know, look, CM Punk has said he has not been contacted regarding the Fox gig. That was a couple weeks ago.
That fizzled out pretty fast.
Yeah, and he could have been contacted since then. I mean, they are touting it as a big deal, and they're making it on Backstage. I think they said the name will be on SmackDown. They're going to announce it on SmackDown.
Maybe it is. Maybe. I mean, that's how I would do it. I would have, right?
Yeah, hold on. Let me double check this. So they posted a video, and they said their first guest will be announced on this. Okay, so it's a big guest. So I don't think it's going to be Punk, but
so here's the question:
it'll probably be someone like a Goldberg or who knows, maybe Undertaker. Seems out of character, but
so if it was CM Punk and the fans were disappointed that it was only on Fox or if it was only on WWE Backstage, what would fans chant if they were disappointed by the CM Punk?
Right.
That was the question.
Yeah, so it's just the first guest on Backstage. I don't think it's going to be. Who knows? Again, maybe a Goldberg, someone like that.
I'm Glenn Rubenstein. You can find me on Twitter at Glenn Rubenstein, where I greatly appreciate a follow. And we'll catch you back here tomorrow night for SmackDown on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Take care.